Okay, first of all, the Indians gave us this country for Thanksgiving, okay? So no backsies. They can't be Indian givers. Pun intended.
It's story time.
All right, Jen. So after our Black Death episode, I started thinking that we really need to find some more topics that are not downers. I think it's the best word for it.
I couldn't agree more.
So I started to go through all the relevant topics that connect to this time period. And, I started thinking to myself, like, all right, let's do the Columbian Exchange. And then as soon as I thought that, I was like, all we're going to do is talk about smallpox and syphilis. Yeah. So then I thought, like, nah, let's do New World exploration. Like, we could do, like, people coming over. Like, there's a lot of cool stories. And then, like, I know us. Like, I immediately started Google searching, like, Tenochtitlan and slave labor and, like, Potosi, the silver mine. And, like, then it would have just turned into us talking about lead poisoning and mercury poisoning. So everything I was going through wasn't pretty, right? Like what I was left with, like religious wars, the Great Famine. And I kind of landed on something that I was like, hey, you know what? This is perfect. It's the time period is just right. Let's tell the story of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah. Little Puritan separatists. We got the Pilgrims. It connects to the time periods. Some old school Americana. Yeah, it's got all the stuff that we're looking for. It's a happy story. This should really work out, right?
Yeah.
Except for once I started doing the research. I'm sorry, but it's another ride on the pain train.
No.
Yes, it is.
No.
So why don't we all grab our tickets, climb aboard, and let's get this thing started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome again to Storytime with the Historist, the podcast for world history students, teachers, and enthusiasts. It's world history, but told our way. So in this episode, we're going to be taking a hard look at our past. Now, it's worth saying right off the top, as I'm sure there's going to be some backlash and bemoaning against us, that historians and historists, such as ourselves, it is okay to be critical of historical narratives, right? It doesn't mean we hate. It doesn't mean we're decrying the outcomes of historical events. We are a great country with really a lot of good things that happen, but there are also events and people and other stuff that aren't so great. And so that's what's going to happen when we peer into the past. So just everybody, keep that on your radar as we are listening to today's podcast. Because remember, the point of history, using past knowledge to make the future better.
I like that we're already starting with a trigger warning.
Isn't that nice?
Off the top. Yeah.
Isn't that great? We're so good.
So, pain train and trigger warning. So let's go ahead and hit up our sources for this because, like I said, we're definitely telling. Maybe not everybody is ready to hear or knows about. So we looked at three main sources for this episode. We took a look at 400 Years on the Pilgrims Get a Reality Check by Bill Newcott. He wrote in the National Geographic this year. We also used How Plague Reshaped Colonial New England Before the Mayflower Arrived by Matthew Rowley. He wrote this in The Conversation in 2018. And then I also sat down for 2 riveting hours of PBS's American Experience, The Pilgrims and the Plymouth Plantation, which is definitely must-watch TV, especially if you're having a hard time falling asleep. Yeah. So I think at this point in time, I think we've let them sit on ice long enough. Let's go ahead and introduce today our guest historist returning to the show, Tyler Arco. How are you?
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me. Hello, audience members. I'm happy to be back. And it's not surprising to me that the 2 history people had to bring in an English guy to get the true story of Thanksgiving, because that's what it's all about.
I just like that you welcomed us to our show.
I know. Thank you.
You have to be welcome to your own show. I mean, everyone knows that.
We're talking about Thanksgiving. We're talking about bringing all the people together. It's about community. So I think it's well placed. So, Tyler, I think right off the top, you say you know the true story of history. You say you know the true story of Thanksgiving. You've got that literary perspective. So please enlighten the audience. What is Thanksgiving?
Okay, Thanksgiving, here's how it starts. We got some people, they're over across the ocean, and they're not having it anymore. They got to get out of there. So they jump on this boat. And it's not easy traveling from one part of the world to another part of the world in choppy waters, all that good stuff. But they make it. Not a lot happens on the boat trip. That's what I know. It's all a happy voyage. They had plenty of food, but they get here. It's a little bit longer trip than they expected. They land. And it's like when you first get a puppy when they land, right? You're like super excited. You're ready to go. You don't understand it's going to be a lot of work. This puppy's got to get from a puppy to an adult dog, right? So anyway, they land. They get out there. They're like, we don't have anywhere to live. We don't have any food. Like, we just spent it all on this trip over. But they're excited, right? They're excited. So they start getting going. They're running into some troubles. And then some Native Americans pop up, and they're like, hey, welcome to our part of the world. They have a few language barrier issues, but
Just a couple.
They work through it. And they teach the Pilgrims how to grow corn. And that leads.
That's a key.
that is
the
key. You have to have food. You got to be able to grow that corn. They also provide some other food during this time so that the Pilgrims can survive while the corn is growing. So corn grows. They're like, okay, we got to eat. We got to bring this together as a full meal so that we can celebrate us coming together. The Pilgrims were welcoming the Native Americans to that land as well, much like I welcomed all of you to this show. And that's what we tell.
Nice.
That is why, thank you. That is why we come together every Thanksgiving to recreate that with our own families, bringing each other together. That's the truth right there.
This sounds like, have you been watching Charlie Brown?
It does sound like Charlie Brown Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch that?
I have seen that, yes.
Yeah, I knew it. Oh, Tyler, this is such a Mickey Mouse bull story that you tell us. This American story. Everybody happy. Everybody eat corn. This is not the truth.
Barf. Oh my God, seriously. That cannot be the reality that you truly, well, whatever.
Well, I mean, to be fair to both Tyler and everybody else who is sitting there listening, and it was like, that's right. Tyler nailed it. Pretty much got it all down, especially the part about the Pilgrims welcoming the Indians because it's a two-way street. That story draws heavily from William Bradford, who is probably the most famous of the early governors of the Plymouth colony. And he wrote on the Plymouth Plantation, which is like very much a narrative history. It's pretty much a narrative poem. I mean, it's pretty epic in the way it's been constructed. Unfortunately, even though Bradford writes this document that we as historians could say this is a primary source, we're going to have to say shenanigans because Bradford very much cherry picks the elements of the story that create the best narrative. And that's why that flows so well, Tyler. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that you just yada, yada, yada are the truth of the story and really make the Pilgrims who they are. And really, this is the crucible in which the American identity is formed. So we can't leave those things out, even though including that information makes the story that much more difficult to swallow.
Yeah, I think you got two things right, Tyler. I think you got the Native Americans and the Pilgrims right in that story.
Yeah, so let's start with the people who get there second. We'll give them first billing, though, because, it's Western Civ. So let's talk a little bit about the true, real story. And it definitely starts with those Pilgrims. These separatist Pilgrims, they had started off their journey in England, but they were like really intolerant of everybody else's belief system to the point where the English were like, if you guys stay here any longer, we're going to kill you. So the Pilgrims were like, yep, no, we heard you. And they go to tolerant Holland, religiously tolerant Holland. And they're posting up in Holland. They're there for about 13 years. And during that time period, the Dutch are like, you guys are horrible. We can't stand you. And do you know what the chief complaint was from the Dutch perspective and from the Puritans on the Dutch?
So true.
The Puritans are like, our kids are becoming Dutch. No, I'm serious. And it's like, the Dutch are like, yeah, well, they were born here. They're Dutch. And they're like, they're learning the Dutch language. And they're like, yeah, that's what happens when you live in a place. And the Puritans were like, nope, we got to get out of here. And so they secure some funding. They find a joint stock company who's like, hey, listen, you guys are willing to go over to the New World and go get us beaver furs, right? And the Puritans, they're like, yeah, we'll go. It's not that hard,
Sure.
right? And the Joint Stock
Yeah.
Company's like, yeah, no, it's totally not that hard. You guys can definitely go over. You'll totally make it. And so the Puritans are like, okay. So they go back and debate it. And some people are like, I heard it's kind of hard living over in the Americas. But then somebody else pointed out, like, hey, listen, the thing is that there's probably going to be a giant war here in Europe any day now. Historians,
true.
we know this is, the 30 Years War.
Yeah,
And so the Puritans are like, well, the Catholics are going to come kill us. It's counter-reformation.
Yeah, might as well
It's
just
the
get out.
whole
Yeah.
end game. Let's just do this. Let's do this. You know what? Let's be adventurous. Let's not be normal. Let's be extraordinary. So they decide they are going to cross the Atlantic Ocean on a boat. Like Tyler
I'd
said.
like
So-
I'd like to stop here and say that's
Mhm.
3 things I've gotten correct. That boat was involved.
Well, yes, but however, you again in your American way of retelling the story, you miss out on a couple key details. here.
Yes.
There were 2 boats. Did you know that, Tyler? There were 2 boats.
What
Yeah,
do
there
you need
was
2
one boat
boats? You only need 1 boat.
because there was a huge congregation of Puritans. We always think of them as the 100 who made the journey, but it was a congregation
Yeah,
of closer
it was
to
a lot.
200 people. And they had these 2 boats. They had the Mayflower, which is an old hunk of junk, and they had this other boat had an awesome name called the Speedwell. And so that's the boat that most of the Puritans hop a lift on to go get to the Mayflower, and they're going to divide everything up. And the Joint Stock Company was like, hey, you got to have these other guys called the Strangers because they're not part of your congregation, but they're going to go over there and make sure this thing works. And then the Speedwell sinks. Did you know that, Tyler? Did you know that?
It doesn't sound that important because it didn't make it.
It sunk in the harbor of Hampton.
Oh, it didn't. Yeah, it
And-
didn't even make it over. Yeah.
It didn't even make it.
That's
it didn't
Europe's
even make it.
problem. That is Europe's problem.
It turns out that those people who got off the Speedwell before it sank lucked out because they weren't part of the 100 pilgrims and roughly 50 some odd sailors and strangers who make the 65-day journey across the North Atlantic in the heart of winter. Because everybody knows that if you are going, and this is everybody at the time period too,
Right.
this isn't just like us looking back. Everybody knows that if you're going to make that journey, you do that journey in May at the latest. Nobody
Seriously,
in
does-
their right mind leaves in September.
Does nobody understand the concept that when a journey is long, you start early?
No. I mean, American history is full of
Ugh.
such epic stories as the Mayflower Pilgrims and the Donner Party.
Yeah,
And
seriously.
everybody who starts late ends up as food for somebody else. And before you're like, no, Thanksgiving's not about cannibalism, I'm going to blow your mind later.
Oh,
All right?
yes,
So
you
just
are.
know that. So the journey, Tyler, the nothing happened on the journey. There was a dude who got thrown overboard and just
Nice.
like luckily grabbed a rope at the last second. And they pulled him aboard. There was 102 people packed into a boat that was made
Ugh.
for like 30. They all lived under like below decks because it was raging storms. There's poop buckets everywhere. There's vomit because they're throwing up. It is a floating toilet for 65 days, making 2 miles an hour on this journey. And just to top it all off, and I don't know why this detail has stuck with me so much, but it's been rattling around my cage for weeks now. There were 2 babies born during that time period. So just like in all of that mess, there's also baby left over. I don't know what it's called. I just realized that. I'm sure you can email us. Somebody just turned off the podcast.
It's totally true. Though I do have a question. Is
Yes.
with people pooping in buckets and obviously the ship rocking back and forth, is that why they
Mhm.
call it the poop deck on a ship? Because that's I'm not kidding.
Ooh, doing bits.
I'm not kidding. I'm being serious. I don't even know where the poop deck is on a ship, but that's where it comes from.
I don't know. We live in Colorado. It's a landlocked state.
Yeah, I have
don't
no
know.
clue.
I don't know. Maybe some of our coastal listeners. Tyler, what do you want to add to the conversation?
Well, I think we're glossing over the key strategic elements that they're doing here. It's in the winter. You already said they messed up. However, by having so many people, they're able to really get in that body heat and survive this winter trip. This is strategic. This is no joke. This is next level from them.
Well, I
All
would.
right, hold your horses.
Yeah,
on
because
that
they
one.
were
Yeah.
not strategic in any way, shape, or form. Let me pop that little happy bubble for you right now.
Yeah,
Right?
do it. So Jen, we're in the new world now,
Yep.
and why don't you crack an egg of knowledge on Tyler's head here and let that yolk of learning drip down on him? What
So-
happens when they get there?
So a good strategy when you're starting a new colony would be actually to have a charter given to you by the mother country or a joint stock company that ensures your right to actually colonize. Well, lo and behold, those pilgrims did not have a charter. Nope. So they have no protection. There's no one to help them. Not country, not merchant, nothing. Because they messed up their paperwork.
They're illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
They were illegal immigrants to North America. Tyler, your eyes is rolled out of your screen.
Well, so here's my thing. You're saying it's going to take 60 some odd days to get help anyway. I mean, what's a
65.
charter going to help when you're first one there? You're not going to get help anyway.
Well, that's the other part of it, Jen. Were they supposed to land at Plymouth Rock?
No, indeedy. There's another strategic issue. They were supposed to land basically on the Hudson River, which is modern day NYC. And that would have been awesome, right? Because there was development up there, good fur trading up there. Yeah, they didn't get there. They got to this crappy piece of shore that was good for like nothing. So strategy and the Pilgrims are not words I would really put together in the same sentence.
Yeah, so they land no
the wrong
charter,
place,
no town. Yeah, it sucks, and that's when our journey starts. That's when things start getting good, right, Jen?
Oh, things get really good. So John Carver, who's one of the the major people on this pilgrimage. Thank you so much. I'm here all week.
Doing bits.
Okay, besides, they're still going to make this happen, right? So they're going to create some laws. Things are going to be put in order, and it's going to be great. But their original.
Are you talking about the Mayflower Compact?
I am indeed. You know the one that Tyler. What do you know about the Mayflower Compact?
Okay, so this is legit, right? They take a bunch of flowers that were blooming in May and they compacted them together.
Definitely.
That's exactly it, right?
Tyler, you nailed
it. This is the foundational event in American history. It was a bunch of stinky, waterlogged, insufferable pilgrims stamping on flowers. So this is America.
Yeah, this is really what the Mayflower Compact that we take to be like these awesome set of laws that establish this amazing civilization. It really wasn't that. It was a series of things like, hey, we will eventually make laws. Hey, we will eventually follow these laws, whatever they may be. And in order to get off the boat, people had to sign this. And the only reason they signed it is because there's no reason to be on the boat anymore.
Yeah, because if I'm... go ahead, Tyler.
Again, this sounds like good strategy.
No, it's not strategy. It's necessity.
Exactly.
The captain
good strategy. That's good strategy.
The mother of all invention.
Jesus.
The captain and the crew, right? They were gonna
kill him. Yeah.
Like, straight up, literally kill. Like there's a new book. Just as a quick aside, there's a new book on the New York Times bestseller list. It's like historical fiction, but it gets into William Bradford's first wife dies during this time period, and she falls off the boat and dies. And some people are like, maybe she jumped, and some other people are like, maybe she fell because she was really sick. And now there's this third group of people who are like, maybe she got thrown off the boat because William Bradford was important and the captain wanted to leave. And so they tossed his wife off the boat so that they would get the Pilgrims to sign that document, which again was not seminal. I guess everybody got to sign it, so that's something. But yeah, so not a great strategy here. They are just making it up as they go. It's bad jazz.
And that Plymouth Rock that we're all so fond of, Matt, why don't you talk to us about Plymouth Rock?
Lumpy beanbag chair. It's all broken up now. Yeah, if you go see it now today, when I was reading the National Geographic article about 400 years on, the author talks about how underwhelming it is. And this is this place where the Puritans are, if you look at the myth making, the mythos, this is the place that the Puritans stood up and said, proclaimed, this is where we've landed and this is where we're going to build. In actuality, they wandered around. They landed on the rock on the third try of their landing party right before they got kicked off. They step on the rock, they walk onto the beach, and then they meet some Indians, Native Americans, and based on everything we've seen so far, things are going great, and I'm sure that the Pilgrims were ready to welcome the Indians to the Indians' land, as Tyler suggested, but instead they shot at them. They're just like, hey, look, there's people, bang, 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 and just started shooting at them, even though they have no food, no medicine. They've been on the boat forever. There's babies, there's the whole nine. Two people have already died on the boat while they're trying to, like, they're dying of disease.
Yep.
It's gross disease. I mean, go listen to our King Cholera episode to learn about, like, diarrhea-borne diseases. And so they shoot up the Native Americans. The natives run off into the wilderness, and then the Pilgrims are like, now we're by ourselves. And they look out, and the Mayflower's just sitting out there at anchor, and the sailors are shaking their fists at them. And so the Pilgrims start wandering around looking for somewhere to build their settlement. And this is this part of Charlie Brown's, Mayflower Thanksgiving, Tyler, that you probably remember, where Peppermint Patty and Chuck Brown, they throw together, and Snoopy's there, and they all make a big house, and everybody goes in, and it's hard work, but there's a snake also, and everything's fine. I don't know why the snake factored in, but it did. In reality, Tyler, this is a fun fact for you to chew on here. The Pilgrims found like a full-on village that had been abandoned, and they start going into the huts. And what do they find inside of the huts? Any guesses?
Corn.
None? I've got you. Stunned. Corn?
Is that going to be your answer to everything?
It's like when the lady in Psycho finds Norman Bates' mom's skeleton. It's like that. They just find a bunch of skeletons everywhere. And eventually the Pilgrims will learn that these are the bones of the, here we go.
Oh,
the Patuxet people.
Oh, for God's sakes, Patuxet.
But those letters don't go together. Like, that's not I'll get it. It's the Patuxet people who've been killed by smallpox, and now the Pilgrims are like, we are gonna live in these villages, ready-made homes. And so whereas most people might run away and like there's like skeletons and it's literally a graveyard. It's an above ground graveyard. The Pilgrims, there is much rejoicing. And in fact, on disease, I found this great quote about the outbreaks of disease in this region that killed up to 90% of the Wampanoag people.
Oh my God, you got it right.
That one I can get. That one I can get. Yes, we're on it. So King James, the King of England, says this, quote, in his great goodness and bounty towards us and our people, God gave us the land to the Englishmen. So literally the English see the disease and the death and the destruction, this genocidal event to the Wampanoag people, as a blessing from God. And it is celebrated as this great thing. Right?
Because nothing says God more than 90% of people dying of disease. And
the ensuing events definitely back that up, because that first winter, 50% of the people die. So all of these strategically minded, doing great, growing their corn Pilgrims die. And this is where I found when I was unearthing some stuff, this great detail, this like horrible situation on set of the Mayflower when people get off and they start living in the village. They're like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And then there's people who die, and it's kind of like yada, yada, yada by William Bradford. But there's this person, Phineas Pratt, and Phineas Pratt has to end up giving court testimony. He gives a sworn statement at court, at a court of law, in 1637, where he talks about what actually happened to the people. They didn't just die of starvation. He says that the sick people, when it was clear and evident that these Pilgrims were going to die, what the Pilgrims did is they took these dying men and women out into the forest and lashed them up to trees with their guns. So it looked like there were forest guards to scare the natives off, so the natives didn't just attack them. And then the people who died before they could be taken to the forest were literally planted into the ground. And even Bradford talks about this, that the dead bodies of those original 102 settlers become the first fertilizer inside of the Patuxet.
Yeah.
Let's just go with Plymouth. Plymouth Plantation. for everybody's sake, becomes the fertilizer for those first
Nice.
corn harvests. And then whatever bodies that were left over after the winter, they were taken up to this place called Burial Hill, because there's that many bodies that they
Nice.
lashed some guys up in the forest, and then they planted
Yeah.
some other ones to become food, fertilizer, and then some other guys are just thrown into these hastily created graves in these sandy hills. Like if you've ever seen Martha's Vineyard, right, the rolling sandy hills,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And then some horrible rainstorms occur in February, and all the dead bodies wash down the hill back into the village where everybody is, like straight up, like right out of Poltergeist.
Oh my God, that is just like I was thinking the same thing, just like out of
Mhm.
Poltergeist when the rains come and the bodies are floating down the neighborhood. Oh,
Yep. And it's at that point in time, Tyler, that some friendly Native Americans introduce themselves to the Pilgrims. And I'll throw it over to Jen to tell the story of these early Pilgrim Native encounters and how that went. But are you doing okay right now? This is a lot.
I know
It is a lot.
I've been a little bit in shock.
They're stunned into silence.
Initially, I've been thinking they've caught a couple good breaks. They're not going to have enough food for all of those people. So, some people got to die. But then you kept talking about the number of bodies, and then I got a little bit concerned.
Yep.
But I also thought of something smart to say, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it because I think we can pull in a little literary knowledge here a little bit later on.
Ooh.
So I'm going to
Okay.
hold that in the back pocket, but we'll circle back.
Okay.
All right. So basically, here's what happens is there is contact between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans prior to necessarily Thanksgiving, right? And it wasn't all horrible. Like it really wasn't. As much as it's been horrible so far in our story, this one isn't. So you have Samoset and Squanto, whose real name is actually Tisquantum. Okay.
Mhm.
They speak, one of them speaks English because they learned it from English traders. They had been there a while, right? Because this is not the first English that are actually in the Americas. Tisquantum had been kidnapped, taken prisoner, so that's not so good. Learned some English. He was a Patuxet native, survived the death of his tribe. That's what I said. Okay. And then, so he's got some contact, and let's go for Thanksgiving because here's where it gets really good.
Okay.
So, like you do on every Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims start firing their guns in the air to celebrate that they actually had some food.
Bullets
super
go to space.
excited.
Checks out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It's kind of like, when I'm going to do a personal story here. When COVID first broke out in like late February, early March,
How
and you
could I
remember
forget?
you remember that day, I think it was like March 13th, where we were told we're not coming back. It's extended spring break. And then panic started to rise everywhere, including in myself. I went to the grocery store immediately after school, and I was so excited because there was food still on the shelves in the grocery store. I screamed out loud. And that was like, I think that's how the Pilgrims felt when they had food, that they knew they weren't
Woo!
going to starve.
We got
But it's-
corn.
I was going to say it was
Bang,
corn,
bang, bang,
right? They
bang.
got corn.
Yeah, I'm sure it was corn.
Well, they did get corn. Yeah, because Samoset and Tisquantum.
Yeah, they
taught
did.
them. They
Yeah.
did.
Nailed
They
it.
taught them. Yeah,
That's
well,
another,
I mean,
I'm up to 4, guys. You said 2. I'm up to 4.
Four
well,
correct facts.
I mean, wait until you hear about this corn, though.
Yeah, really, seriously. Anyway, the Massasoit Native Americans thought that the Pilgrims were like in trouble, right? That they were under attack, and there had been a slight little treaty made between the Pilgrims and the Massasoit to
Yeah, you're talking
help
about
each
the
other.
leader. Yeah, the chief.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so he comes to help, but the Pilgrims are not having a problem. They're just shooting their guns in
They're having a
celebration.
party.
Okay. Yeah,
party
that's
time.
just what it was. Now, who knows whether this was the true case where he really came to see if they needed help, or if they were just used to hearing gunfire and just stopped by to see what's up. Nobody knows. But
Hey, we brought some deer, sort of
Yeah,
situation.
not
yeah.
beer people, deer.
Yeah, deer.
So they brought
Venison.
deer, and they cooked the deer, and the Pilgrims and the Native Americans eat.
Well, they probably ate the deer because the corn was gross.
Oh, the
'Cause-
corn is disgusting, but at least they eat deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the natives did the deer up right. They know how to do it. They could roast
Yeah.
it up. They could skin it. They got all the choice cuts. Got the back straps. Oh, great stuff.
Yeah.
The what the Pilgrims
Oh,
brought to the party though.
Seriously.
because Tisquantum had to teach them how to like get fertilizer, right? So he taught them like, hey, if you take these fish out of the river, and then you could put the fish into the cornfields, and then you put like the dead fish over the kernels of corn, then it'll serve as fertilizer. And the English, and this is what I can do, because I'm not doing any accents for natives, because that's no. Yeah. However, for the English, they're like, what you talking about putting the fish in there? We eat the fish. And then Tisquantum's like, no, man, listen, just trust me, it's going to be good. And they're like, no, we're going to eat the fish, and we put the poop on the corn. And someone says like, what? What are you putting on the corn? And like, it's called night soil is what they were putting on. It's the human poop. It's all the duties. So Tyler, I guess in terms of like, you're thinking about like more food, less food, more poop would have been more fertilizer. So that's a strike against the Pilgrims, in fact, because more people would have produced more poop, which would have produced more food the way the Pilgrims were growing the food. But let's just be clear here. Poop corn was not as good as fish corn.
Yeah. It's not like Nebraska corn.
I'm going to circle back on
nothing
this.
Even close.
I'm going to push back on this here, right? They packed all those people in the Mayflower. You said there were poop buckets. They had plenty. They had plenty. They could use that poop.
They threw them off the boat.
Well, what do you mean they threw them off the boat? No, you got to keep that.
That's 102 dukes a day.
Yeah, do you want to have 102 dukes a day
you said
for 65 days?
You said they needed it. They could have kept that.
Yeah, but they didn't know it at the time. They just thought everybody would make it to the New World and poop there.
Why aren't they being more strategic?
That's what I'm saying to you.
Yes, that's exactly what
there's
we're
no
saying.
Strategy. See, thank you for making my point. No, and by this, and that poop that's coming off the Mayflower is like,
that's what I want. Dysentery, right?
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, this is quickly turning into our King Cholera episode.
It really
we got to move on
quickly.
So for more on poop-based illnesses, make sure you go check out King Cholera season 1, episode 7, I believe.
Nice plug. Let's wrap up Thanksgiving though. So here's the deal.
Let's do it.
They're eating deer. It's not like pumpkin pie and deer and mashed potatoes and everything else. It's definitely not that kind of meal. They got some food. Some corn that's covered, that's been grown with human feces. Not only that, they're actually surrounded. Their village is basically surrounded by severed heads and body parts because they hung those up as a warning to other people to stay away. So you know how normally
that's so metal,
isn't that? I know
that is so heavy metal.
We have like these delightful tablecloths and these wonderful centerpieces and a table, flowing in abundance with food. The real Thanksgiving was like a deer, gross corn, and severed heads. I'm just saying.
Just hanging out at the Firefly family's house and the House of 1,000 Corpses. It's just like, Dr. Satan comes in like, oh, is that deer? Yeah, not good. It's not good. Yeah, and then when it was all said and done with all of this, the natives leave. They're like, well, all right, cool. Well, that was a really fun, Thursday. See you guys later. Like, it was not like this. That nobody was like, I can't wait till we do this again. sort of thing. Yeah, they just leave. And in fact, it's we don't even see any talk about giving of thanks. Until about the 1630s, when 1637, where the first Thanksgiving makes its way into the historical record. And of course, the thanks that was given 1637 was a pilgrim colonist who's thankful that they had killed a bunch of Wampanoag, actually. Oh, and nice. This is right at the beginnings of what will become King Philip's War, when Massasoit's son Metacom leads a revolt, because he's pretty it's pretty obvious to him that those pilgrims who welcomed him to his own land, according to guest historist Tyler Arco, those pilgrims were here to take the land and kill all the people. And in fact, on Thanksgiving, up on Burial Hill that I talked about earlier, Wampanoag, not just Wampanoag, but natives from all across North America come to a genocidal plaque that commemorates this event. And so from the perspective of the native people, the story that we just told isn't a story of overcoming awful planning, horrible paperwork, poop, and failure. It is the story of how one group of people systematically destroyed another. And unfortunately, for a lot of people who celebrate Thanksgiving in this country, it's not necessarily looked at in this joyous sort of way. It's very much a contrived event for many people.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a case of we want, we all in all civilizations, not just America, but all different nations want to portray their past in a much more rose-colored light, and that's how we get these stories. But don't get me wrong, I love Thanksgiving. I do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great.
I do.
Yeah, and I think that is something that's worth talking about. Is there is a lot of good things, and in fact, what Bradford, what he writes in his story about the Plymouth Plantation, very much is a part of that American tale. It's just not the complete American tale. It's a cherry picked set of facts in a lot of way.
So Tyler, what was your end count for how many things you got right?
Well, I think I'm still at 4. And I don't know if I'm taking the wrong message here, but what I'm hearing is next Thanksgiving, when I'm chowing down on that corn, I need to be thankful that it wasn't the poop corn. That's what I've gathered.
That's the message.
That's my number one takeaway from this episode so far.
That's the message.
Yeah.
And then instead of watching Charlie Brown in a made up story, you could think about the actuality of that first winter, and dead people in the forests and zombie corpses rolling down hills, and then you could cap it all off by instead of watching bad NFL football, you could go over and check out like the 1637 Project and hear from Native peoples about the stories that the people who lived in what we call New England were doing during that time as well. So a plug for, I think, a worthy project there as well.
Yeah, I think I will add that to my list. I like to be a little bit more accurate in my understandings of history. But that does bring me back to my literary reference. You've mentioned the forest. You've mentioned the forest a couple times here, and so in Puritan writings, we have seen a trope of the forest equals dangerous. So a prime example, Young Goodman Brown, which is a critique of the Puritans, of course, but about the Puritan Society's beliefs that the forest holds evil and bad things. And I wonder if this is a reference to either some of the disease-ridden people hanging from the trees, but also potentially some dangers from attack via other wars. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to point out there. I think that the real danger, though, comes from this is what happens when you don't check your calendar. I think that's maybe the forest is a stand-in for bad planning. Everybody needs a friend who is thinking about the details, right? Yeah, everybody wants to go to the party. Nobody wants to clean up. You need that person.
Yeah, and I really think had they thought about this a little bit more, like Thanksgiving, a little bit too close to Christmas currently, couldn't we have moved that back a little bit?
Well, I think that's another story for another time, but for this one, for that gripe, you have Abraham Lincoln to thank, and we can't talk bad about him because he got shot.
Yeah, you can't.
Can't do it.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
That limits a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think the real question for us in the end shouldn't be necessarily why do we tell ourselves a story every year that is so obviously untrue, but maybe how do we see ourselves in the Pilgrims? Because is that because that's what we want to see, or is it because the Puritans wanted us to see? I don't know what it is, but in the end, do we tell ourselves an untrue story because we want to feel better about our origins? Or do we tell ourselves an untrue story because we want to feel better about ourselves?
That's really deep. Maybe we are these really deep people, or maybe it's just a total load of BS, our story, just like the one told by Charlie Brown.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today in another edition of Storytime with History. Thank you, Mr. Arco, for joining us as well. Yeah,
bringing all that highly accurate historical knowledge.
I'm here anytime you guys need some true hot takes.
We got you. I think we'll have to dip back into your your cavalcade of learning. Yeah. All right, so you guys know where to find us. We're on Spotify. We're on iTunes. You can go check us out at anchor.fm. Storytime with the Historist. Make sure you guys check out. We got this week's playlist will be out. Check me out on Time Bomb for 1 hour of easy Thanksgiving listening. Past that, if you've got any information that you want us to develop up, you can always check us out at storytimeatthehistoryist@gmail.com. Otherwise, for all of us, bye.
See you next time.